Hallelujah! How's it going? My name is Blessious, and I wanted to talk to you guys about something a little bit different. How I discovered Destiny. Kind of more specifically, Bungie, and how I got involved with the community. And it all starts as a wee lad. Right around that time, Star Wars Episode 1 came out-ish. I remember playing with my friend. He would always come over and visit, and we would play freaking lightsabers in the streets. And I remember him telling me vividly about a game called Halo. He would talk about hunters. He would talk about the Covenant. He would talk about banshees, ghosts, race, warthogs. And I was like, man, what is this game that you're talking about? Because you are sucking me in right now. Eventually, I went over, we played the game, and I was so jealous. All I had was a GameCube and a PlayStation. So, yeah, I had the Grand Theft Auto taken care of. I wanted that Halo, though. Fast forward a little bit, I saw him beat it, I saw everything about it, but I finally got my Xbox when Halo 2 came out, and oh my god, I was in that game so much. Whether it was the online that you could do with Xbox Live, or going over and playing with friends, it was always a blast, and I love Coagulation, because at the time, I was watching Red vs. Blue, I'm like, oh, it's Blood Gulch! And yeah, I was a Red vs. Blue fan, pretty hardcore. So, fast forward a little bit. My dad, for his job, had to move a lot. So we moved back to Pennsylvania, where my mom is from. There wasn't really any games that I was playing. I remember getting the expansions for Halo 2 when we moved, but the game that really got me going back into gaming was a little game called World of Warcraft. If you don't know what it is, think Destiny, but remove the guns, and you have magical abilities, and you can swing swords, and you have way more classes, and it's on mouse and keyboard. I mean, I'm not wrong. There's way more to go into explaining the game, but it had basically the fundamentals of what Destiny is. You could do raids. You can do dungeons that are basically strikes to get the rare gear that is only dropping a little bit. You can do competitive multiplayer in the battlegrounds, or the thing that I wish Destiny had is, like, in the open world, you could straight up just see someone and gank them if they're on the opposite faction. That is probably like my favorite thing about World of Warcraft. Call me a masochist. It's hard leveling up, but it's fun. I loved it. I did the raids. I did the dungeons. I was probably at one point in the top tier. Eventually the expansions came out, but I'm a vanilla dude about WoW. A little bit later on, if you bought the game Crackdown, you were able to get into the Halo 3 beta. I mean, people talk about marketing tactics for Destiny 2 with Pop-Tarts and Rockstar, but back in the day, you had to buy a game to get into a beta. That is some ice cold stuff, Microsoft! And that is actually true. You had to buy Crackdown to get into Halo 3's beta. And when you got into Halo 3's beta, when it finally released, it was the snow map, and it was the map that had like the fort, and you can drive a mongoose in, but it was so cool because we got our hands on mongooses. Mongooses were like the two-man warthogs, but were like an ATV, and that was exciting. But I loved it, and I probably played the crap out of that beta. I remember downloading that beta and just sitting there just watching the bar just download. I'm like, oh my god, I'm gonna play some Halo 3! Anyway, I played it, I loved it. So I was aware of Call of Duty, and all my friends, they got Call of Duty too, and we played it together. Actually, we got in the same room and got in the same lobbies and played online, both with headsets. We'd meet each other because we could hear each other, and we'd both be doing stupid voices. That's probably why I got a good Christopher Walken. Wow, thanks Xbox Live. Anyway, a little bit after that Halo Reach came out, I was probably like 20, and my friend and I would just dominate on that game. By dominate, we would go in and act stupid on the servers and have fun, and it was always a blast. So I was 23, and I moved from doing what I did. I was a radio announcer in Pennsylvania. I moved to radio stations to do social media and stuff for radio stations in Virginia Beach, Virginia. So I was aware that Bungie separated from Microsoft, and I was aware that Blizzard and Activision merged together, and I was aware that Bungie is working on this thing with Activision. At the time, I'm like, oh, okay. I didn't really put much thought into it, and for a while there, I was just all about work. I wasn't even paying attention it was like super early 2014. And like, I remember applying for the alpha of the beta and I was able to get in. And oh my God, I was so excited. I got to get into the Destiny beta. And when I got in, I knew nothing of what was going on. I knew that there's the 3 classes, but I didn't really like look into anything. Like I said this before, but I didn't really look to YouTube for Destiny content until probably House of Wolves. So I was just really all by myself. So I get in. The first character I ever made was a Warlock. I'm like, oh, Nova Bombs, that's cool and all, but I'm like, those Hunter Cloaks though. And that was my brain process for everything. So I did everything, and I didn't know that Iron Banner came on the weekend of the beta. And so the open beta for everyone came, and I played it, and I was a little bit more educated, but I was like, man, this is the same thing. But at the same time, I did do the Iron Banner, and I got a bunch of losses. I'm like, what are these Iron Medallions for? So like, Bungie didn't do a good job explaining of what things were in-game. In-game. You had to go to their website, or you had to go to forums, or you had to go to Reddit. It was just a little bit weird for me at the time because I didn't know how to go online. So I was just like, oh, whatever. I eventually got the game and I was excited for it because I'm like, oh my God, my friends are getting this from back home. It's gonna be like Halo Reach all over again and those COD days. And for a little bit it was. But then they disappeared. I remember my friend and I had to coax him into doing the loot cave, and we would sit in front of that loot cave and he was like, man, I just wish I could play the game. I'm like, but dude, this is how we get better loot, to play the game. And he was like, okay. And we'd sit there probably for like a couple hours, just sitting there, just shooting shit, just shooting in the loot cave, getting not that great a gear out of it, but it was the best way to loot up at the time. And after that, I know he took a break. Shortly after that, after Vaulted Glass like came into existence, I'm like, well, I'm not gonna get 5 other people to play with me. Again, I didn't know you had to go out of game. I was like, man, I got no friends that play this. So I just stopped playing. I got an email saying, hey, if you had the so-and-so edition, you have the Tumbler Sparrow. The Tumbler Sparrow is the one that has like the flames on it. That was the first sparrow that you can actually like yaw and do tricks on. I'm like, sweet. I went in, I got it. I used my patience and time on Twilight. I remember this vividly, and I got my ass kicked. I'm like, oh, nope. Anyway, so I was playing Evolve one day when Evolve came out. Remember that game? And there's this guy that came on, and I was doing Christopher Walken accent, and this guy thought it was funny, and we started like pairing up. And I'm like, oh man, I don't want to play this game anymore. And he's like, hey, you should play Destiny. I'm like, oh, Destiny? You mean Destiny? And he's like, no man, try it. So it was pre-House of Wolves, and we played it, and I just got sucked back in because so much has changed since that. And I'm like, I'm not solely playing Crucible. I was getting loot, and then I got on the hype train for House of Wolves. I was discovering the online entity of the Destiny community, the Reddit, the YouTubes and everything. I'm like, oh my God. And I got sucked into it, man. I'm telling you, I got sucked into it. And then when Taken King came out, I started doing YouTube content, and that was the start of, well, Blessious. So that, summed up, is how I really discovered Destiny, the Destiny community, and all of that stuff. Crazy little story, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. It's a little bit different content for you guys, but again, you know, it's the end of Destiny. We should be celebrating this community, the game that we love, and getting excited for a game that hopefully has enough lasting power to give us 3 more years. Because this game is probably the longest game I've ever played, ever. And I appreciate that so much. Guys, I love you. Thank you so much for all of the support. If you are new to the channel, why not subscribe? If you enjoyed this video, like the video, just to give it some help. I love you so much. Until next time, Cowabunga!